Mr. Transformers 96 here with another Build-A-Figure review. This time we have from the Marvel Legends X-Men series, the Apocalypse Build-A-Figure. So I was very excited to build this Build-A-Figure. Character-wise, I was really looking forward to this one just because I do like X-Men, I like X-Men villains, and Apocalypse is an X-Men villain. So it was definitely one that I was looking forward to collecting and building. However, personally, it didn't look like the best thing in the world, and getting it in person kind of feel the same way. It's a nice figure, it certainly is, but for a Build-A-Figure and for 7 figures to complete him, he should definitely be a little bit more in my opinion. But let's get started on it. First of all, the face sculpt. It's nice. I like the expression. I love that. He looks very, he looks almost like the cartoon, the 90s, or 90s cartoon version of Apocalypse. I do like that. I like the expression on the face again. It's very cool. It's lacking some definition, and I think that's why it gives it a cartoon look rather than a comic look. But I would like some shading in there just to really highlight some of the wrinkles in his face, and also the teeth. The teeth just kind of blend into one big piece. Would have been nice to actually see a little bit of definition within those teeth. Because otherwise it looks flat, it looks a little cartoonish. So having a cartoon look isn't necessarily a terrible thing, especially since Apocalypse maybe, well, I was almost going to say most famous for, but maybe that's overstepping it a bit, but he's very famous from the 90s cartoon itself. So having that look isn't a bad thing, but it is something that I don't prefer too much. I'd rather him have a comic look rather than a cartoon look, and in some areas he kind of crosses over to cartoon more than he does comic in my opinion. The body is very nice. It's rather standard though. You do have the muscles defined nicely. I like the big A in his belt. I think that looks very cool. Very kind of like a wrestling styled belt. One aspect that is really unique is his biceps there have a ton of veins in it. Those are some extreme veins. They're really popping in multiple places. They look really cool. You do get some veins on some figures, but these are really extreme. You can even see it a bit in the shoulders too, so that's very nice. I do like that. It gives him a more vicious look. His little gauntlet sections are okay. They can be rotated slightly. They can swivel a little bit. They're not glued on or anything, but they are very tight. I do like the kind of glossy look that they have. When they hit the light kind of right, they almost look a little wet, which is kind of an interesting look. I kind of like it. The hands themselves look very cool. Lots of detail there, a lot of little line work, which is nice. My biggest issue is the articulation. There is a hinge there, so they should be able to hinge, but they really just don't have the room to hinge. So they're basically they just swivel. They don't even have a hinge, which for Marvel Legends is quite poor. The legs themselves, pretty standard thighs there. The little, the boots, the kind of electronic boots are kind of interesting. They look pretty neat, and overall look pretty decent. This little piece, though, is hanging loose, which allows you to get good articulation, but it is a little annoying how loose it is. Because a lot of times it'll just flip up here just randomly, so it's something that you always have to kind of pay attention to, but it's nothing terrible. The hoses connect to the belt and then they connect to the gauntlets. They hang down well. They're not strong enough to ever get in your way, but they're a little annoying just in the way that they look sometimes. This, with the arms straight out, they look pretty decent. It's when you have his arms down that they just look a little ridiculous. They're just so big. And I understand that they made them big so that you can have good articulation without them hindering it, but they're just so large that they're just awkward looking and they look ridiculous. I wish that there was a better way to display them. I wish that they gave you 2 sets. They gave you one long set and then they gave you one short set if you just wanted his arms in a more standard position so he didn't have these massive hoses hanging from the back of him, because he just looks weird. He really does. And it's just something that kind of annoys me, unfortunately. But yeah, I think that he has kind of an odd look like that, which is definitely unfortunate. Going over his articulation, it's decent. He's got a ball hinge neck, which can allow you to look down quite nicely, but with that big collar piece, he looks a little ridiculous when his head's down, but up works really nicely. Ball hinge shoulders, although I have, the arms have a tendency to pop out on both sides, so that's a little annoying. He has a swivel at the bicep, single hinge elbows, which go a little less than 90 degrees, but almost 90. Again, these are swivel hinges, but the hinges really don't work at all, so you basically just have a swivel. He has an ab crunch which can go forward that far. It can go back very far, which is quite nice. And then he does swivel at the waist, but the belt does get in the way. I think you should be able to push down the belt, though, or push it up. Although no, it actually doesn't have much range to do so. So you basically don't have a swivel at the waist either, which is a shame. Ball jointed hips, which kick out very nicely, and they go to the side a pretty decent amount. He has a swivel at the thighs, double hinge knees, and then hinge pivoting ankles. The pivot works very nicely, and then the hinge down works wonderful. The hinge up works okay. You get just a little bit up. So overall articulation on him is a little less than your standard Marvel Legends figure. Not by a ton by any means, but he is lacking when it comes to the waist and the wrists, and then the head has a bit of an odd look to it. The shoulder pads, if you're wondering, they do hinge up about this far. As far as the paint, lacking a little definition on the head like I mentioned, but the body is unique in the fact that it has like a really nice kind of metallic blue, which is very cool. Like that's the thing that gives him more of a comic look and less like a cartoon look in my opinion, is that metallic look to him. I think that helps elevate him a little bit, so that is quite nice. And then he has this like really nice shiny almost like a pearlescent, like really dark blue that in some shots it looks just black, but in others it does take on this really neat kind of like dark turquoise, which is very cool. So I do kind of like that, and does help him be unique, which is nice. The Build-A-Figure size-wise that he really reminds me of is Onslaught. He has a similar build to him, he really does, and he's a similar size, other than lacking some of the bulk in the headpiece and the shoulders. But size-wise and the way that he's built, very similar to Onslaught. I almost thought that he maybe had some shared pieces to Onslaught's legs, but it doesn't look like he does. So it does look like he's a unique sculpt, which is nice. As far as his size, he's okay. He's like a nice size. Here he is with Magneto. You know, he's bigger than Magneto, obviously. He's both taller and bulkier, but not by a ton. Like, he's not big enough to be, like, a really big Build-A-Figure. He's on the smaller range of Build-A-Figures. He's no Mantis, of course, but he's certainly not the size of Build-A-Figure that I think that he should be. Especially since you needed to buy 7 figures to complete him, you know? Like, 6, you know, that's a bit better, but 7, I expect something bigger, to be honest. Overall, a pretty nice figure. As a Build-A-Figure, there's a lot to be desired. The thighs are also a little loose too. I find when I pose him, the thighs tend to go out a little bit when I don't like it. There's some quality issues that I have. I'm not a fan of the hoses, and I think that he is lacking in articulation slightly for your average Marvel Legends figure. Overall, he's nice. Character-wise, he's great. I'm really happy about that. But, you know, lacking a bit in size and has a few issues on top of that as well. So, a decent figure. Not one of the best Build-A-Figures, though, of recent times, and it's a little disappointing, but overall it's a good enough character that I'm still very happy to build him, of course. So here goes, that's my thoughts on this Marvel Legends X-Men series Apocalypse Build-A-Figure. Let me know what you guys think of them, and thanks so much for watching.